Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your hosts, Face the Kid, Tony, the Pugilist Boy, and we are the children of the game. Tony, how are you? How was your weekend?
Very good, thank you very much. Very quiet and chilled, as I'd hope it would be, because the next one is the carnival weekend, so we all know what that means. Yeah, jump up and wave something. Yeah, so it's going to be a wild one, and I probably needed the rest ahead of this new school year taking place just a few days later. So all's good, pal. How
All
about
right.
you?
Well, it's a very long weekend, a lot of transport, a lot of commuting, but it was all good otherwise. Can't complain.
Yes, well
We'll
done
leave
for
it there.
making it up to the Midlands to see the card up there. I think that was a journey well worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, overall, like I looked at the card initially and I said to myself, doesn't really feel that great, but
Mm.
it's it's a free card, chance to get some content, speak to some people, etc., etc. Although, funny enough, this is probably the first time I've never taken my phone out to actually record anything. I literally just sat and watched like every single fight. And no, overall, I mean, with the exception of maybe two, I thought, you know what, it was all right. I couldn't really complain too much, you know. So yeah, it was cool.
And that just goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, Base and I, we're not just sitting in behind the TV watching the game. We're actually there. Fight fan Danny, who sometimes covers, he's off tomorrow, flying out to Poland to be present at the Daniel Dubois versus Alexander Usyk world title. So, we're about that. We are children of the game. We don't stop learning. We're always about this thing.
Right, people, just before we carry on, let us know what's the connection saying. Let's make sure that we're clear and we're concise before we move on. So just put in the chat if we're good or if any of us are slacking and we need to just double check the connections or whatnot. So just wait for the chat to get popping a little bit. While we're doing that, Tony, big up the people that's in the chat for us, so that we can get
Okay,
moving after that.
absolutely, without fail. So, first to the table this afternoon was Untraceable. Yo, big up my brother. Untraceable. I don't know about Dubois. He hasn't seen anyone as skillful as Usyk. So, yeah, as I said, Danny will be out there getting contact with D. Hot Pies, welcome as always. Declan, the champ has been defeated. Declan has surrendered his belt. Mulla, big up everyone. Dan the man, the hardest working man. Philip Answer, what's up? What's up? G Chain in the place. What's up, my fellow Guna? Opayemi, welcome. Can we talk about John Fury? Don't really want to, but we may get there. Nando, my guy, saludos aquí. ¿Qué tal, hombre? I might have got a few languages mixed up there, but Nando, welcome, my friend. Uh, don't laugh at me. Declan again. Phil Larkin, bless up. Dr. Wolf Tickets, big up to you. Guy Fawkes in the house. And CJ Nico 19, that's a name that I've not seen before, but welcome. Hope you enjoy the show.
CJ, just put in the chat, how am I odd character? I'd like to know. Not saying you're wrong, I just like to know where you got that assessment from. Put it in the chat. Right. So, being that it wasn't I guess it wasn't like a Starfield weekend, there is no quote unquote big fight. But I think it's probably only right to start with Makamba Luta, seeing as that was sort of the first one of the weekend. And then we can sort of, I guess, touch on the other fight of that card that I was paying any attention to. Obviously, if there's anything you want to talk about, feel free. That's all I will really be speaking on, is those two on that one, and then sort of the three on the other card. So Tony, I'll let you start that one off, seeing as
Give me 30
giving...
seconds, my friend. Give me 30 seconds.
No worries. I'll defer in all of the controls to you today, as I'm not using the laptop. Declan Streets is saying I took my eye off the breakdown title after my MSN title win over Raj. You can't be a champion in 2 weights simultaneously. This ain't the women's division, so you got to choose which one you want, Declan.
Okay, so let's get into it. Friday night saw the Queensbury card, which took place at York Hall, Bethnal Green, the mecca of boxing for the small hall shows, a venue which I myself have boxed at as an amateur. And I happen to know that a lot of my boxing fraternity friends and others were at this particular event. It was a nice, Friday intro to the weekend, headlined by the Dennis the Menace, who was 16. No, excuse me. Get this right. 13-0. No, 14-0.
He was 12-0 with 6 KOs. No, 14-0 with 6 KOs. Sorry, 14-0 with 6 KOs.
Yeah, 14-0. And my guy Ian Baluta, 16-4 with 1 draw from Romania. What was quite an entertaining headline bout. A fight which began with rather jolly tones at the presser and at the weigh-in. 2 guys didn't seem to have any kind of animosity to one another, and so made it quite a cheerful entry into the ring. But of course, once the bell rang, the friendliness stopped and the 2 guys got down to business, and it was an enthralling matchup, swinging one way and then the other. Interestingly, McCann was heavy favorite. I think you could have got 7-1, if I'm not mistaken, on Baluta. So it was a very good matchup in terms of the 2 participants. In terms of what happened in the bout, it swung one way and then the other. The first round, as you probably expected, Dennis McCann comes out. He's got his audience fired up. He's got them cheering, and he comes out in the first round and he's boxing very well. But Baluta, he's about this fight. He knows he wants to win, and in the second round, he turns up the pace and he wins the second round. To me, so this is purely my own judging on this fight. The third round is a barnstormer because I can't split them. I personally couldn't split them. And when I look at the scorecards of the 3 judges, this is the first round where the judges disagree. Much like myself, one think it's one way and another thinks it the other way. Round 4 was a McCann round. He came out, he looked strong, boxed brilliantly. He managed to tag Baluta with some really good shots. Then in round 5, again, it's a very close round, but I give it to McCann. Very close, though. I put a little asterisk against that round. That, I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. And interestingly, I saw that as a split, just favouring slightly towards McCann, but 2 of the judges saw that as a Baluta round. Round 6, everybody saw that as a McCann round. I saw it as a McCann round. All 3 judges saw it as a McCann round. Round 7, Baluta round. Everybody saw it as a Baluta round. Round 8, I saw it as a Baluta round, but the judges saw it as a split round. Two saw it for Baluta, 1 saw it for McCann. And then the last round, which is the round at the headbutt or the accidental clash of heads occurs, is a split round for the judges. 2 saw it for McCann, 1 saw it for Baluta, and I saw that for McCann as well. So overall,
the headbutt occurred in the 7th.
Yeah. So the fight was stopped due to the damage to the head
On the 9th,
on the
yes.
ninth at the end of the ninth round. So
Nope, it was about 10. It was about 25, 40 seconds in.
so essentially, because we've gone past the 3 rounds, is it that they need to for
4.
the 4 rounds we need to go to the scorecard? This goes to the scorecard, and what we get is a majority split decision. But in terms of the action, it was to and fro, as I said. Baluta, we've seen him plenty before. If you've not seen him, he's someone, he is always in an entertaining fight. And Dennis McCann, obviously a very cheeky chappy, very entertaining. But as he's been going through tin cans and not so good competition, he's now come across somebody who is decent competition, and he's been taken to a point whereby we now see that this is probably his level. Good fight though, very good fight. What's your say on it?
Well, I mean, look, I guess credit where it's due. Obviously, we always know Enoch Baluta, when he comes into town, it's like that's the acid test for all the prospects coming up. I've dubbed him the prospect killer. And if you're not on job, or if you're not suitably prepared, he will expose you. Now, I guess the heat in York Hall, I've been told it was worse than it was last time, and the last time there was in June, which I believe was like at the start of June, sort of in the height of when you normally get the hot weather over here. But yeah, I was told that no, it was worse on the week on Friday. So maybe it was a blessing I didn't end up there, because that journey up to Birmingham afterwards would have been very interesting. But that being said, I mean, when we put it into perspective, look, yeah, Dennis McCann's had 14 fights, but he's only he has no real sort of amateur experience in the pro game as such. He's amateur in the adult, so I mean, he didn't stick around amateur. He kind of went straight into pro. He's only just turned 22, so he's not exactly the finished article. Not really man strength. He's still kind of learning on the job. So with regards to the fight, I think I gave the first round I gave to McCann. Baluta was just sort of swinging very wildly at times. It was almost like he was just thinking he was going to be a one-punch knockout, and that's all he was aiming for. But McCann was, he was fighting well. He had a very, very wide stance, so that stance didn't benefit him when it came to actually getting out of range of shots. It also didn't really help him to sort of drive down and generate power either. But I gave him the first. I gave Baluta the second and the third. I gave McCann.
So we appear to have lost sound from Base.
The fourth, and then I came.
Oh, we've lost Base completely. I'm pretty certain here he comes.
Yeah, I think we dipped off a bit. Can anyone hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you back now. So you were just giving us your view that McCann had won the 4th round, and that's where you dropped off.
Okay, yeah. I had it 2-2 after 4. Then I think I had McCann on 5 and 6, and then Baluta on 7, 8. And then obviously it was stopped in the 9th after 40 seconds. Now, I didn't actually realize that you can score a round with less than a third of it actually going through. So I thought it would be an even round, as neither guy, I guess, overly imposed their will on each other or anything of that nature. But that's not the way it works. Actually, you're actually supposed to score it even as an incomplete round. But I scored it as a draw. If I hadn't, then I guess I would have scored it for Baluta. Therefore, I would have given him the decision overall. Yeah, McCann, he had the movement, but that wide stance just didn't benefit him in terms of fully getting that out of the way of those looping lefts and rights from McCann, even with the sort of the tricks of trying to knock him off balance and push him over on a couple of occasions. Nothing deterred Beluga. So overall, like I say, it's a learning fight. It's one that he's gonna obviously have to use to get better at, and we'll see how well that cut sort of clears itself up. He says that they want the rematch, but there was a couple of occasions in that where it looked like McCann was being protected somewhat by the referee. I think it was in the third round where Beluga was sort of really getting on top of the action and was really forcing the pace. And I think the referee jumped in to stop a combo that Beluga was throwing, and that sort of stopped the rhythm a bit and allowed McCann to kind of get back into it for for a period, while Beluga was, I guess, maybe trying to reassert himself and figure out his patterns again. But yeah, down that stretch, this being, I think, the first or the second time that McCann was in a 10-rounder. I think he was starting to feel it after sort of round 7, and then when sort of round 8, round 9 came, he was I think he was about to sort of get on top for him also. So overall, he's got work to do. Beluga, we kind of know where he's at. He's sort of maybe just that shade underneath true European level, but he is the acid test. And if they do run it back, I know Liam Davis was in the arena. He wanted the McCann fight next, but looks like he'll have to fight someone else, and then they may have that rematch on that undercard if it's if the cut is suitably healed up in time. If not, then they'll just have to run that one back at a later date. Maybe on the undercard at one of the Copper Box shows or something. He'll probably do well there. And yeah, that was pretty much that fight.
Cool. So that was an entertaining end to the Friday night. On the undercard, I'm sure you want to have a chat about this. Was our previous
Tony, sorry,
guest,
one second, Tony. The guys in the chat, can you just tell me what's my camera looking like? What's my sound like? Because Tony, you're sounding very electronic to me, but I know that's because of my side, not yours. So I just want to double check I'm okay. If I'm okay, we can carry on. If not, then I might have to jump off and then come back in. So let me know in the chat, guys. How's the sound and the picture?
So just from my perspective, what tends to happen is you cut out and then it seems to buffer your sound and picture and then deliver it very quickly. So you go stop and then you get almost into not quite Mickey Mouse speak, but you speak very quickly because it's buffered your picture and sound and delivers it, and then it slows back down to normal. So that's okay. Happened about 3
Some
or 4
people saying
times.
it's dipping in and out. All right, bear with, right, Tony, hold down the fort. I'm gonna bounce out. I'm coming back in 1 sec, all right?
So guys, as I said, what we will go to review next will be on the undercard of that Friday night action is Raven Chapman, who was up against Lila dos Santos Furtado for her WBC International Featherweight Championship belt. Obviously, Raven Chapman is building herself up for a crack at a world title. Obviously, that's I like to call the featherweight division the Serrano weight because she's the queen of the featherweights. But Raven Chapman 6-0 with 2 KOs going in against Lila Furtado, who was 9-0 with 1 KO. Interestingly, from a UK perspective, Raven Chapman is ranked number 1 in the UK, number 5 in the world, whereas Lila Furtado was ranked number 2 in Brazil and number 15 in the world. That doesn't seem like a huge differential from 5 to 15 in worldwide ratings. But when you look at their records, Raven Chapman has only ever fought 3 girls with a winning record. Despite the fact that Furtado has fought more times, she's only ever fought 2 girls with a winning record. And 6 of the girls that she has fought were debutants. So it's clearly a huge differential in the way they've built themselves up to their records of 6-0 and 9-0. So let's get into it. Got a little bit of picture to support what we saw. As I said, this was for the WBC International Featherweight title. Now, Raven, you know, a friend of the show, is in great shape. She comes in and she pretty much dominates this fight from beginning to end. It's a 10-rounder because it is a title. And she basically, this is all about levels. In this fight, Raven's just too slick, too strong. You know, she's physically able to hurt Furtado. She knocks her down. I can't remember which round it is, whether it was the first or the second. But there you can see the action. Drops her in the first or the second round, and then goes on to dominate for the rest of the fight. Base, what round did Raven knock down Furtado?
I believe it was the third.
Third even. Okay. So, as I said, she went on to dominate for the rest of the fight. Obviously, you know, with a knockdown round in there, the scorecards were going to be wide. The judges had it 96-93, 98-91, and 97-92. I would have said 97-92 or 98-91 would probably be very accurate. 96-93, yeah, I could still see that. You know, a couple of rounds were swingish, but overall, even in those rounds that you may have seen it for Furtado, Raven was still very strong in those rounds. She worked hard in those rounds. And to me, this was a good outing, good 10 rounds of action. She had to do, you know, had to work. She had to dig in and ensure, but she seemed to be completely and utterly prepared for this because she didn't lose any energy going into the later rounds. She kept the gas on. She kept dominating and pressing the action. And so, yeah, as I said, a very dominating display from Raven, and one which puts her in, you know, good stead for the next step up to the next levels, which should put her in line for a world title crown. Base, what did you think?
Yeah, so funny enough, I actually spoke with Raven earlier on today, actually. With regards to this fight, so her style is it's almost a very educated pressure. Like, she moves, the way she moves, she's never stationary, keeps the head sort of always pendulum, makes it very hard for her to, you know, sort of get hit clean, but she is happy to sort of barrel in to take a shot in order to get her work off, trusting that her, you know, grit and determination. She's a grinder. She will kind of grind her opponent down if she can't get them out of there, like, you know, immediately. Now, when I did speak to her, she actually said to me that she was struggling from, I think, the second round. She said the heat, it was unbearable at times. It's like, again, she's fought there before, but she said it was worse than the last time she was there. And I think the last time she was there, it was just as commentary. So, but yeah, actually going into the ring, like, she said that she was really feeling it for sort of from second round on. So she wasn't as sharp as she wanted to be. She couldn't really push the pace as much as she wanted, and some of her punches were flagging as well, because she just wasn't, like, yeah, the heat just kind of had her down. But oh, yeah, and I think the knockdown might have been the second round and not the third. But yeah, she basically worked out harder than Furtado. I think Furtado actually managed the occasion better overall, primarily, I guess, because she's you know, she's from Brazil, so she's used to the hotter climates, especially the non-air conditioned venues as such. So maybe that was a bit more comforting to her than it would be for Raven. But stylistically, even though Furtado was good technically, had, you know, sort of good straight shots, ultimately Raven just was outworking her, and that was basically what won her the victory. I think, had it not have been as hot in there, she definitely, I feel like she would have been able to step on the gas more, push the pace, and been a bit sharper from round sort of 3 to 6, and I actually could have seen a stoppage occurring. But yeah, when you're in there just having to sort of manage the energy reserves, it was a little bit more difficult. But yeah, it was a good performance. She was defending a WBC international title. What's her name? Sky Nicholson is actually challenging for the interim WBC title on the 15th of September in Mexico. So yeah, so she's basically, I guess, going to be next in line for that world title, or maybe to be elevated. But with Raven with the international, she can definitely force herself into a position to face, I guess, Sky for the interim title, to either lead to the Amanda Serrano mandatory, or to pick up the vacant title if Amanda does drop it, to go on to her PFL MMA career. But yeah, good outing for Raven, and I think, as from what I suppose, she's supposed to be back out again towards the end of the year, November, December time, maybe even October. If that's the case, then that's good. The more she can get out and get active and just be accurate, the much better it is for her career. And she's hitting those prime years, so it's the perfect time for her to be more active.
I mean, October would be a 2-round turnaround, even the end of October, so that might be a little bit tight. But
well, I mean, Jared Anderson done less time. Remember, he went out
but
in
he didn't
June.
do
He's
he
out
didn't
this
do
Saturday.
a tough 10-rounder in
Yes, he did. He
sweltering
did
heat.
10 rounds against Charles Martin. He almost got knocked out twice.
Okay,
Are you forgetting this?
yeah.
Tony, you
So,
see, you're still on hangover from Vegas. We need to get you checked out.
so yeah, that really I didn't really catch much else on that Queensbury card on that Friday night. I know there was a lot of young talent coming through. Nothing else stands out that I can think of.
Just
So
Nathaniel Collins against Raza Hamza. He knocked him out in like 45 seconds in round number 1. It was a sweeping left to the jaw. Just took his legs away from him. Just couldn't recover. He was basically just frozen in time. Good shot, good solid shot. He needs to come straight back out, because there's no reason for him to take a break now. He needs another fight quickly. He wasn't in any danger. It didn't take even a jab in that fight. So yeah, he's fresh and good to go.
right, so that takes us over to the Saturday evening's entertainment. Nothing really of interest from the United States this weekend, so it was just a local show up in Birmingham, headlined by Galal Yafai against Thomas Frank. So we'll leave that one to the end. It was a very quick fight, but we'll leave it to the end.
No, we're not leaving that one to the end,
All
because
right,
even though that was the main event, that wasn't the big fight. So
okay.
that you can speak about that one now if you want. We'll
All
get to
right.
the big fight when we get there.
All right, then. So, Galal Yafai. Let me get on to which one is the big one, Pattinson or Flynn?
No, Pattinson.
Because Flynn Baker was very entertaining as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that can be second. We do that 1 second to last.
Okay, so we'll start off with a very interesting English title defense for Solomon Dakers. Was in against South African Chris Thompson. So it wasn't a defense, it was actually just a 10-rounder. The English champion up against the South African. And good workmanlike performance from Solomon. When we start looking at heavyweights in the UK, Solomon Dakers is one of those that is often mentioned as being a pretender to the throne. So you've got the likes of David Adelaide, and you've got Johnny Fisher, and so on and so forth. Well, Solomon Dakers is, as I said, currently the English champion, so he does hold a title of some note. In terms of the performance on Saturday night, I thought it was a decent performance. I like his jab. I like his footwork. He has been working with Anthony Joshua. I noticed that in training. So I mentioned last week about Johnny Fisher getting around and working with good people and doing what is necessary to elevate himself to the next level. Well, Solomon Dakers is doing the same thing, in my estimation. I don't see as much as I see as Johnny Fisher, but that doesn't mean to say it's not happening. Obviously, putting yourself in with AJ, you know that's good work. But he's diligent, he's committed to the task, and he comes in and he always acts and looks professional in the way he goes about his work. You never think, oh well, he's cutting corners or he hasn't. He's there at the end of the fight as much as he is at the beginning. So it's clearly showing that he's putting in the work to make sure his gas tanks is adequate. Thompson, his opponent, decent opponent at that kind of level. Never going to be anything too great. And to be honest, I think if Solomon, steps in a little bit more and sort of puts more into his offense, he maybe gets a stoppage in this fight. But overall, I'm quite pleased with his performance. And again, it's a good performance for him to work off to get himself up through the different levels of the heavyweight division. What was your thoughts?
If I'm honest, I feel like he gave that one way too much time. Look, if we're gonna be totally honest, like Solomon Dakers, he looks like he's filled into his size a bit more. That's one plus I'll give him. He looks a lot more sort of especially when I was in the arena, I said to October Red, across his back he looked a lot more like strong, and he'd been doing that S&C work, just getting his body into a proper sort of full heavyweight shape. That being said, he had the height advantage, he had the reach advantage. Stylistically, he was doing well with the jab, but he kept just trying to launch the backhand from across the ring, thinking that was essentially what was going to work without trying to disguise it. He was timid to sort of obviously get hit back, which obviously, okay, I understand. Chris Thompson's got 7 KOs himself, but you were landing before he was landing. Like, commit to your shots a bit more, like stay in, you got to stay in range, just impose your overall size. It was just another sort of, it started off okay, sort of the first 2-3 rounds. After that, it just became almost like round management and like fight management, and became a bit boring. Not boring like, oh, it's a snooze fest, but just like, okay, nothing's changing, you're not making any adjustments, you're not making any sort of any appearance to try and change what's going on. And ultimately, yes, it was a comfortable unanimous decision win, but at this point you need to be doing more than just going points, especially if you want to hold a prominent position in the heavyweight division, because no one's really going to be begging to fight you moving forward. And I don't know what you generate in terms of someone to then overpay opponents to get in the ring with you. I don't really see. I've said before, I don't see the ceiling being that high. Decent amateur, but it doesn't look like he's come out of that amateur style yet. And there's a lot more that I need to see before I truly believe that he's even going to be like one of the top British, contenders in the heavyweight division, let alone the European or a world. That's my thoughts on the fight. But it was decent to watch for the first few rounds.
Cool. All right, we'll move swiftly on then to Galal Yafai, who was coming in on a perfect record 4-0, in against Tommy Frank, who was 15-3-1. Tommy from Sheffield. So it's a Sheffield versus Midlands battle. And this ended up being a very quick bit of action. Literally a one-rounder. Galal imposes himself extremely easily in this fight. Doesn't even break sweat, in my opinion. Does more work in the back than he does out front. Dominates Frank against the ropes and gets the stoppage through just not allowing Frank any time to get himself out of that position of getting pummeled. You see, blew him a nice kiss when he fell down. But yeah, light work for Galal Yafai. Moving on to bigger, better things. That was, of course, what was that? WBC International Flyweight Championship bout.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts, Base?
Not much. I mean, Galal had a point to prove. Apparently, him and Tommy Frank had words. Either I think at the press conference, I didn't actually watch the press conference, I can't say, but he was spiteful, jumped on him, just knew he was levels ahead of him, and just proved that. I think this was just more him telling, Jay Harris, like, you don't need to, even if it's not for the European, even you're not on my level, come get this work. I think that's how he was looking at it. And unfortunately, Tommy Frank just had to be the sacrificial lamb. But yeah, he's just levels above this type of opposition. And to be honest, it's like, I know you kind of, maybe you just needed to double check that, but this wasn't, even though it was a statement performance, and it wasn't, because everyone already knew he was those levels above, so it was kind of a waste of a main event. But at least I will give Galal one thing. He allowed us all to have the option to go home early, which was nice, because most of us didn't leave the building until after 12 anyway. Had he have stayed in the ring long, it probably would have been after that 1:32. So yeah, thanks for allowing us to walk home while there were still street lights on. Appreciate it.
That's 2 weekends on the trot that boxing shows have finished the following day after midnight.
When I say after, I mean that's because we was obviously media, so we stayed for other things like that. They finished. I think that fight was done by 11 or something along those lines, or just after 11. But because it was one round, everyone could bounce before midnight, so it was cool.
Cool. All right, yeah. So Patterson versus Walker is upcoming for Daniel J. Bolton. Before we get onto that, though, we will be addressing what I consider to be, and Base considers to be, the second most exciting fight of that particular show in Birmingham, which was a rematch between
Jordan Flynn and Kane Baker.
Yeah. So this was very edgy as a prelim. I mean, obviously the two boys have fought each other. The war of words in the week prior, or the week preceding, was vicious. I mean, there was talk about fried chicken. Fried chicken was brought to the weigh-in. It's fair to say there was a bit of animosity. It's fair to say there was a bit of animosity between these two guys. Kane Baker, on his home soil in Birmingham, he got, I think he had a fair bit of the crowd. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Because it sounded very much like he had a lot of people behind him. And once again, just like the first fight, they delivered. They delivered in terms of action. And, much like I explained with the McCann Baluta, this was a fight that went swing one way, swing the other way. You could see that both guys, after talking the talk, were ready to walk the walk. And, fists were flying aplenty. There was a lot of aggression and, hard physical, pushing around and, trying to get position and, the odd stray shot here and there. But, overall, there was, each fighter wanted to have the last sort of talking point when it comes to each round. You could tell that, as each round was getting towards the end, the action kind of got more and more, and each fighter was trying to win that particular round by upping the ante in the last minute or half minute of the round. So there was, a lot of interaction, and then you get towards the end of the round, and then all of a sudden they're flurrying like mad to try and win the round. I haven't actually got the scorecards with me on this one. I used to do. But it was very, very much a fight of 10 rounds that went back and forth. Baker was dropped in the second round. Now, Base, did you feel that was a legitimate knockdown? Because I had a feeling it was more push than punch.
Well, to be honest, I only saw him going to ground. I didn't actually see the punch. I was in conversation when it happened, so I can't give an answer. I haven't watched it back.
Okay, so my opinion was, looking at the different angles of that particular knockdown in the second round, I thought there was more push than punch. But the referee decided to award it as a knockdown. Obviously, that does have a bearing on the fight overall because it becomes a 10-8 round. Flynn was deducted a point in the 10th. So I guess that kind of goes against, or, kind of returns a point back to Kane Baker by the end of the fight. But as I said, it was a very to and fro bout that ended up being a majority draw.
Was it in the 10th or was it in the 9th round he got deducted?
It was in the 10th.
Okay.
So Jordan Flynn at 9-0, Kane Baker at 19-10-1. Both fighting at Orthodox. As I said, this was a rematch. And the referee scored the fight 94-94. That was Christine, who was the referee. So they have talked about running it back again. I would say yes, please, because it's an entertaining fight. What was your view on that fight?
So I'm gonna try to go a little bit more into the analysis of the fight, which I guess is what the people want to hear. It was a case of, when I did my initial pick for this one, I felt like it would be Jordan Flynn would make the necessary adjustments to make it a more comfortable fight. I felt like he might have a shot to be able to rock Kane Baker, but neither of them are punchers like that. I mean, you've got Kane Baker, who had 21 fights prior to that. 30 fights, prior to that, with 1 KO, and you had Jordan Flynn with 9 fights prior to that with 1 KO. So neither person was a vaulted puncher as such, but I felt like Flynn would be able to kind of get to Baker through sort of straight shots and just allow him to maybe walk onto something and just buzz him, because he's been in a lot of fights, so maybe the resistance is a little bit and ultimately, when you kind of see it and you see a second round, you say, okay, it looks like maybe that resistance is starting to fade. He was shipping some punishment early on. But from the second round, I remember I turned to October and I said, he's actually tiring already. I can see those body shots are already taking effect. It's only the second round. The way he was reacting to them, the way he was moving back, I could see that it was just that he looked like he was already tiring. I said, okay, this one may actually be more of a struggle than I anticipated when I was doing my prediction. And he sort of won the first few rounds. Then Baker sort of made it competitive round sort of 3, 4, and 5. And then, but from that moment onwards, Flynn just he really sort of was starting to feel the pace. Baker invested a lot of good work to the body, not a huge amount up top, except for when they was in the clinches. But Jordan Flynn was constantly complaining about shots to behind the back of the head. Now, at one point, I remember I just said, at this point, stop complaining and do something about it yourself, because clearly the ref either didn't care or he didn't see anything wrong with it for the amount of times it happened. So you kind of got to now just adjust and do that work yourself. And yeah, it just came to a point he was just grinding away throughout the fight. You had Flynn obviously was throwing the more eye-catching punches, the cleaner work, but Baker was just more active, and his work was clearly just slowing Flynn down, and he was just being sort of that ring general throughout the fight. And then yeah, the point off in the 10th round, I remember I said to both Josh Hart, shout out to him if he's watching, and October, like, yeah, I bet you this is going to be a draw, and they're going to have to go for the trilogy. And lo and behold, the ref said 94-94 draw. And yeah, both of them looked at me like, how the hell do you do this all the time? I'm like, well, you know, it is what it is. But ultimately, it was a good fight, but I feel that both of them are each other's kryptonite at this point, because Kane Baker can't establish a proper lead over Jordan because Jordan's better than him, but Jordan just can't match the output and clearly doesn't have the necessary dog to fully impose his will, nor the power to keep a pressure fighter off. And I think that's just why these fights are always going to be horrible. I don't necessarily agree with Eddie and Frank when they were saying that they think um, that Flynn won by a couple rounds, or they felt he won by a couple rounds. It was definitely, to me, 5 rounds apiece. With obviously there were swing rounds in there, but ultimately, like, Baker was just doing more in those moments. And again, with him being the B side, if he gets a draw, you can't really then say that the A side guy should have won the fight, because the B side, the away fighter, normally don't really get considerations like that. So if it's a draw, more people think he either deserved that draw or he should have won. But it was a good fight. Again, I'll be happy to see it again, because you know, no, it's always going to go the distance, it seems, between these two, but each one is going to look stylistically different, because the first one looked different to this one, so I would have to assume that the third one will look different as well, if and when that does take place. But yeah, it was a good way to start the card.
Excellent. So that leaves us with the last fight we're going to talk about for tonight, which is the fight that we found the most intriguing of the night in Birmingham, which was Cyrus Pattinson against Conor Walker. Cyrus Pattinson was being lined up for a crack at Lewis Ritson. He was clearly the A side of this fight. Obviously, lots of people could see a high ceiling for Cyrus Pattinson. You know, I've talked about Cyrus in previous fights that, you know, he's a very accomplished boxer. He was in potentially a fight of the year. Earlier this year in March, he fought Chris Jenkins in an absolute barnstormer of a fight. Conor Walker was coming off of a defeat. No, he had won his last fight, didn't he? But he had 2 defeats in his last 4. So he was coming in with a record 11-2-1. The Southpaw Cyrus against the Orthodox Walker. And this one turned out to be a barnstormer. Pattinson, he is slightly taller, as you can see from the pictures. He, to me, was just, I thought he would win this fight before. The weights are pretty even, 146, 146. He came out, he looked to box, but from the minute he came out, Conor Walker was pressure, pressure, pressure. He himself looks like he got himself in a really good condition. You see, he said, hair slip, and that right hand was something else. I mean, once he connected with that, it looked like it was going to be a really tough night all night for Cyrus Pattinson. That first knockdown took place in the 3rd round. And from there, the confidence for Walker just grew and grew and grew. But he was, you know, a constant menace for the technician Pattinson. Pattinson's tried to re-establish himself in the fight. But Conor Walker, from the time he landed that knockdown, he knew he would have his number, and he was literally willing to take a shot to deliver the concussive hooks. So got him down again in the 3rd, as I said, and then again in the 6th. Obviously, you can see that the facial damage to Conor Walker, because it was not just one-way traffic. Cyrus Pattinson went to war with him because he just felt, you know what, I'm going to fight fire with fire. And they traded. You know, there was no room for pleasantries. Pattinson knew he had to get back into this fight after that initial knockdown, and he tried everything he could to hurt Conor Walker. But regardless of what he attempted, and obviously, I see him as a very good boxer, but on this occasion, the talent was outworked. And as I said to my kids all the time, talent don't work hard enough. Hard work will beat talent. And this was one of those situations. You know, what Walker, as I said, put himself through the mill. Again, I went back to see some in my research of Conor Walker because I honestly didn't know too much about him. And on doing some inspection, he's a guy that works hard. I've seen some of his footage from gym work, and he's a hard worker. And again, a fighter who gets about in different places to get good sparring. He's been in with some good guys. So, he's at the coalface working really hard on the craft. And it looks like on this particular night, everything went right. He was able to establish himself with his tactics, punching in between the punches of Pattinson, getting his feet into the kill zone and ensuring that he wasn't falling short with his punches. And, Pattinson could not get out of the way. So overall, a very accomplished performance by Conor Walker. Kudos to him. The fight got stopped eventually by the referee, and it was a very good performance. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the corner pulled him out at the end of after the end of the 8th round. Now, two things. So when you look at their records, you'd say, well, Pattinson's got the higher KO percentage. It would have been something akin to maybe sort of 75%, 75%, because he was 6-0 with 4 KOs. Whereas you had Conor Walker, who was like 11-2-1 with like 3 KOs or something along those lines. But what you first notice is that Walker was definitely the stronger of the two. He was the more compact. And Pattinson, I guess, thinking that he can just, sort of blow people away, doesn't quite work when, especially when if you're the taller guy fighting the shorter guy in the pocket. Patterson's best options and his best work in this entire fight was when he was boxing and moving, when he was creating angles with the southpaw stance, pivoting around the target and catching Walker from angles that he wasn't seeing. But then every time he decided he wanted to go in the phone booth and get too close and trade, he was coming off second best because Walker had smaller arms, which meant that they would get into the target a lot quicker. His hooks, for the most part, were a lot more compact. When they were trading on the inside, like I said, he was getting to the target quicker. He was the quicker of the two. His guard was up enough that even though he was taking damage, as you can see facially, he was tucking up and able to avoid sort of the heavier stuff, especially to the chin, onto the temple. Whereas Pattinson, when he was on the inside, he was basically just getting outpositioned by the smaller, more compact guy. And that was ultimately just his downfall within the fight. Now, to give him his props, after that incredibly heavy knockdown in the 3rd round, he did get back up. He did rally, and on a couple of occasions, he actually looked like he properly stunned and hurt Conor Walker. But then every time he did that, Conor Walker would literally, all he had to do, one counter, and then bam, like he had the momentum back. So it's like, was he actually hurt, or was he literally there just riding shots, waiting for opportunities? And maybe it was a little bit of both, but he was just the more determined. He clearly had studied his opponent a lot more than his opponent had studied him, and he was just more up for it. He had his fans in the arena, his friends, his family, like they were all there Like he said after the bout, like everyone that was there cheering for him, he knows them by name. Like, so they're just people that was willing him on. And the offer of getting a 2-fight deal from Matchroom after this was what he needed to get him sort of to get him going, to keep him in the fight. Um, hard night for Cyrus Pattinson, but again, he got up 3 times too. There was especially, I think it was the very last one, to me looked like he slipped on the ground. And it was a, even though a punch did sort of come in, I'll give him that, but it looked to me like it was a slip, and it was a bit unfair. Not unfair, it was a bit unfortunate, I should say, that he got caught with the shot as he was slipping, and so the ref obviously counted it. And I think the third one potentially may have been arguable, like it was a slip also, but the right person won. Funny enough, just before, I think during round 7, I was saying to Josh, like, at this point they might as well pull him out, because there's no reason for him to, he's not got the power to knock out Walker, it doesn't look like at this point. And funny enough, when I did say that, he did throw something which looked like it did wobble Walker, but again, he counted afterwards. But I was like, he hasn't got the power for it. He's way down on the cards. He can't win a decision. So the best he can hopefully do would be to knock him down several times and knock him out. I don't see it happening. The corner might as well pull him out and save him for another day. And lo and behold, the following round, that's exactly what they've done, which made perfect sense at that point. I mean, he'll come again, but we don't know what level he's going to be at overall. I mean, he may do well to sort of get to European, or he may just be a guy that's in fun domestic fights moving forward in his career. But I'm not sure if there's going to be a huge ceiling past that. That just is, sort of what it is at this point in time. But shout outs to Conor Walker. Like I said, he's able to change his life. If he can get another big win in his 2-fight deal, then he might even get another 2 fights or 3 fights after that, and he could maybe, if he wants to, quit his full-time job and just box full-time, get more sponsorship, get more opportunities in and around the Midlands or outside, and keep the gravy train rolling. But great performance for him, and it was definitely fight of the night. He was definitely star of the night in my personal opinion. And yeah, that was the card in a nutshell.
Cool. So Daniel Boateng has written that we can't lie. Patterson's coach was doing too much, moving over dramatic. I can't say I know too much about that. Base, got anything you can say about that?
No, the only thing obviously I saw was at times he would pick up the towel, look like he was about to throw it, and then he wouldn't, and then he just sort of would be moving back and forth in the corner. But I was on the other side of the ring, so I didn't see out, or I didn't hear if he'd said anything in between rounds. I didn't have access to any of that, and I haven't watched it back on the zone yet, so no real comments.
Cool. All right. Big up to Only One Yams in the house. Bless up. Big up to Coach Lee. Hope you're well, Lee. Nice work tonight with our lads. So yeah, guys and girls, and we have come to the end of our show. Bang on the hour. We reviewed what was a decent weekend of boxing. If you haven't seen some of it, then I think there's some fights there that were definitely worth a look over. But yeah, this weekend we have Daniel Dubois fighting in Poland against Alexander Usyk. Most people think this is lambs to the slaughter. I actually give Daniel Dubois a small chance. And if you give a guy a small chance, then that's a chance nonetheless. You know what? He's the Brit. Good luck to him. If he wins, good luck. It will shake up the whole heavyweight division if he does.
Jared Anderson is also facing Andrei Rudenko this weekend as well. So if anyone wants to stay up and watch that Top Rank card, they can. Yeah. Tony, give him your socials.
Okay. You can catch me on Pugilistboy on Instagram, on Twitter, or Pugilistic Boy on Instagram. Those are my main ones. Pugilistboy here on YouTube.
And as for me, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual, probably will have a video out for you guys tomorrow. Instagram is BaseDaKID. I don't really use it for boxing stuff, so don't follow me if you're looking for boxing takes, but you can follow me for when I do decide to upload new photos, whenever that may be, or reels. In terms of in Twitter, you'll find me on there quite regularly. You can just type in BaseDaKID and I show up. As it's written on here, as you can see here, just there, that's exactly how it's written. Or you just type in B_A_S_E, just base, and yeah, it shows up. But yeah, that's pretty much it for us, ladies
Quick
and
question,
gentlemen.
Base. Do you give Daniel Dubois any chance against Alexander Usyk?
You guys will find out on Friday when I do basis picks. So make sure you like and subscribe to my channel, and you can find out everything I have to say about that fight then.
Excellent. Okay, one last quick shout out before we go. We've seen this just today, the announcement that Kiko Martinez has retired from boxing. Kiko from Spain has come to the UK several times and imposed himself against some of Britain's finest. And I think it's, I think the boy deserves his flowers. He was always in a fight, always entertaining. Good luck with your retirement, Kiko. All the best. And that is me done.
All right. Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you all next week. It will be a bumper show. Until then, have a great evening. Be safe. More content coming on this channel. Obviously, like I said, like and subscribe to mine. You'll see all my content. But yeah, we're out of here. Peace.